Hey guys, turning on the camera to talk about what I think one of the most important things is when learning any language really, but certainly when learning Japanese, and that's being proactive and getting out there and actually using your language abilities, using the Japanese that you've learned. And it might kind of seem like pretty obvious advice to give, but I think you'd be surprised by how many people just really don't put enough effort into getting out there and using what they've learned. Um, and, you know, I think in Japan it's quite easy to get away with not using your Japanese in comparison to if you were studying in another country, I would expect. Certainly if you were a foreign student studying in England, learning English, you wouldn't be able to get away with not using your English to the extent you can get away with not using your Japanese in Japan. People will expect you to speak English, and certainly aren't. The chances are they aren't going to have any competency or ability in the language, in your native language, if you're in England, because we're just rubbish at languages, to be quite honest. There's not too many people on the streets of England these days who can speak another language or have any desire to speak another language. So, if you're a foreigner, you're pretty much out of luck. But here it's very different. Japanese people very much expect you not to be able to speak Japanese. If you can even utter, konnichiwa, or any Japanese phrase, any few words of Japanese, and they're generally sort of it blows them off their feet. They really do not expect you to have any ability whatsoever in Japanese. And most Japanese, well, there'll be one of two reactions. Either they will be worried that you're not going to be able to speak Japanese and will try not to speak to you, not in a racist way or a negative way, but they're just genuinely worried that they're not going to be able to communicate with you because they won't expect you to speak Japanese, and they may go out of their way to try not to talk to you. Of course, if you speak to them and it becomes apparent that you can speak Japanese, then most of the time people's attitudes will change and they will be more than happy to talk to you. Or the other side of the coin is they may see it as an opportunity to try out their English, which is also very common. All Japanese seem to speak English to a certain extent. Not necessarily the most grammatically competent, but they learn it all the way up through junior high school and high school, and even these days primary school students are learning English. And so some Japanese certainly value the chance to try out their English abilities, no matter how limited they may be. From the high school kids that you might walk past in the street who will insist on shouting hello at you. I do wish they would find another word that they could learn, because after the 17,000th hello, you kind of lose any desire to respond or make a comment back. But yeah, anything from that, or you might be in a bar and I've had 60, 70, 80-year-old men come up to me and attempt their English on me that they may not have brushed up on in 40 years, which is and it's nice, it's endearing, and it's really nice that they're making an effort. But so you can, to an extent, not all the time. Some of these people, even if they're trying their English out on you, it's not good enough to start the conversation. You'd have to switch to Japanese anyway. But you can certainly get away with not speaking Japanese. Even going shopping, if I go down to the konbini, I've had it just the other week. I went down to the convenience store. I was buying some dinner. And no matter what you buy, they'll always ask you if you want it heated up, and they will always ask you if you want chopsticks. I've had chopsticks given to me with sandwiches before. They want you to have chopsticks, and they will always ask you. They will say, do you want your hashi, which is the chopsticks? Do you want it heated up? And the other week, even though I've answered these questions a million times, I've been to that same convenience store a million times and answered those questions a million times. I wasn't really thinking, I wasn't paying attention, wasn't listening to what they said, so I didn't know whether they'd asked me if I wanted chopsticks or a bag or my thing heating up. So I just feel like to myself, and they just assumed, even though I've seen that person working there a million times, they assumed for some reason that in the 3 days since they'd last seen me there, I had apparently lost all ability to communicate in Japanese. And you just see their eyes go wide and they panic. They're thinking he doesn't know what's going on, and they just go and just put the chopsticks in the bag or whatever it was they were asking me for, and just did it anyway and sent me on my way. Whereas back in England, they probably just say it again but louder and slower and assume that somehow that's going to make the foreigner understand. But yeah, so I think one of the most important things is making sure you're proactive and getting out there and speaking Japanese, whether you're in Japan or whether you're back home. I think one of the things that I let myself down the most was the fact that in my first two years at university, despite the fact that the Oxford Brookes, where I study, has a large contingent of Japanese exchange students that come over to us. I got to make a lot of Japanese friends my first 2 years, and probably mustered a grand total of about 10 sentences of Japanese with them, because they're studying English and they're more than happy to speak English. That's good for them. But I realise now I probably should have taken that opportunity to practice my Japanese, and I'd probably be a lot further along in my speaking development now if I had. And it is amazing just how even just speaking 30 minutes or an hour a day, when you're out here, for even just chatting to friends while studying, you just saw my Japanese it went up and up and up and up. My ability to speak, which I still am not happy with, it's still got a long way to go, but it's really come on just from trying to use it. And I'm still guilty of it now. There's times when I'm speaking to someone who I know has some sort of ability in English, and the moment I come up against a topic that I'm finding a little bit difficult to talk about, then I will just switch to English and inflict my English upon them. And I end up having a lot of conversations where I'm speaking English, the other person's speaking in Japanese, and we just stick to that because we're more comfortable in that. And that's nice. It is a nice feeling. I do enjoy that feeling of being able to communicate 2 different languages but understand each other perfectly. But I know I'm in Japan, I should be practicing my Japanese. I just thought I'd put on the camera today and talk about that, and just say, if you're studying Japanese or you're thinking about studying Japanese, make sure you're proactive with it. Make sure you get out there and you use your Japanese, because that is by far the best way to improve your abilities. So get out there, be proactive, and I'll see you next time.